That's 2 o'clock by me, Chair. Are you ready?
I'd like to welcome everyone to this hybrid meeting of the General Licensing Committee, but I'd also like to thank Councillor Thomas and welcome Councillor O'Connell onto the Licensing Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. Please be aware that this meeting is being transcribed only for the purpose of producing the minutes. This transcript will be deleted once the committee approves the minutes. The transcript will not be downloaded by anyone other than Democratic Services. May I remind members that as per statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask that you all please use your cameras for the durations of the meeting. We welcome the use of the Welsh language in meetings. I've had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Members in the chamber, please be aware that we're all on camera and that you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raise hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. And please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. Thank you for that. We now move on to the agenda. And, item 1 is attendance and apologies. Jade, have we any apologies, please?
No apologies, thanks, Chair.
Anybody got any? No? No, we're all here. Thank you. We move on to item 2, which are declarations of interest. So, members, do you have any interest to declare anyone? No. Thank you for that. We then move on to item 3, which are minutes of the Licensing Committee on the 25th of the 9th, 25. They're on pages number 5 to 8. Have we all read them? Members, would any possibly state whether you have anything to raise in function to the minutes? Because if not, I will take them as approved. So we happy to approve them? Yep. Thank you very much. Yeah. All in agreement? Yeah. We move on to item 4, which are the minutes of the Licensing Committee on the 2nd of the 10th, 25. That's on page 9 to page 12. If you've all read them, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? And if not, I will take them as approved. Are we all happy with them? Great, thank you. We then move on to item 5, which are minutes of the previous licence hearings on page 13 to page 20. Members, are you happy to note those minutes? Yeah? Okay, thank you. We then move on to item 6, which is the workload update, quarter 1 and 2, which are April 2025 to September 2025. Claire, would you like to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The report today is to provide members with an overview of the work undertaken by the licensing team during quarters 1 and 2 of the financial year. The report highlights the numbers of complaints received for each licensing regime, as well as providing an oversight of some of the investigations that the team have undertaken. In relation to taxi licensing, which is one of the biggest areas of work for the team, officers dealt with 42 complaints during the reporting period, which included allegations of out-of-area licensed vehicles using Torfaen-designated Hackney Carriage taxi ranks, overcharging, dangerous driving, and allegations of inappropriate behaviour. There has been a significant amount of work undertaken during the first 6 months of the year in relation to a review of the Council's policy on the administration and regulation of Hackney Carriage and private hire licences. Consultation has taken place with the trade and members of the public on a review of the age limit of Torfaen licensed vehicles and the requirement for private hire vehicles to display the name of the private hire operator for which they work on the vehicle. A separate report will be presented to members to provide an update. Officers from the team have also been involved in a procurement exercise for the testing arrangements for vehicles licensed by the Council. Again, a separate report will be presented to provide an update. Section 4.2 of the report outlines for members the number of reports that have been considered by means of delegated decision during the period. These reports relate to issues that cannot be determined at officer level due to, for example, applications that are contrary to the Council's policy, but are considered and determined by the head of service. The report also provides an overview of other areas that fall within the remit of the team, including scrap metal, charity collections, street trading and animal establishment licensing and animal welfare. Animal welfare is also a function that sits within the Trading Standards team. The overall work activities undertaken by the team are included at Appendix A of the report. It is recommended that members of the Licensing Committee note and comment on the contents of the report and note the activity report provided for quarters 1 and 2 of the year. Thank you, Chair. That's my report.
Is there anything any of the members would like to raise in regard to that report? Councillor?
Thank you. Yeah, just one question from me. You commented there in the report about the number of complaints against taxi drivers, licensed taxi drivers. Is that about an average of what we get each year, or is it particularly higher or lower this year?
It's about average of what we get for the year. Obviously, there's fluctuations, there's peaks and troughs, but no, that's not something that we can anticipate. But yeah, it's about on par when we do a comparison year on year. Thank you.
Is there anything anybody else would like to raise before we move on to the recommendations? Okay, that's great. The recommendations are on page 24 of your agenda. That note the comments of the content of the report and note the activity of the report for the April 2025 to September 2025. So we're all happy to agree that? Yes. Anybody not happy or anybody want to abstain? So we're all happy. We call that. Thank you, Jade. Thank you for that. We move on to item 7, which is the approval for the consultation of the proposed Hackney carriage and private hire licensed vehicles 26-27. Okay, would you like to present the report?
Sorry, I put my microphone on. This report today seeks approval from members to consult on the proposed Hackney carriage and private hire fees for 26-27. The fees are non-statutory and the local authority can determine what or whether to charge. The proposed fees have been calculated on budgeted salary costs for 26-27 and direct costs based on 24-25 actual or confirmed costs. Proposed costs are calculated as set out in section 4 of the report. Local authorities can ask a business to pay any reasonable costs incurred in providing a licence. The proposed fees are attached to the report at Appendix A. The proposed fees show a slight increase on those currently charged. This is primarily due to the increase in direct costs to the service. A comparison of fees with neighbouring authorities have been included at Appendix B. Members will note there are differences in the fees across authorities, and this can be due to a different salary and on costs and ways in which local authorities may calculate fees. Members have previously agreed a reduction in fees for wheelchair-accessible vehicles and fully electric vehicles. Currently, a reduction of £80 for new vehicles that are licensed and £70 for renewal applications. Members are asked to consider if they wish to continue offering a reduction in fees and, if so, the level of reduction. It is recommended that members of the Licensing Committee approve the proposed fees for consultation, or, should members not approve the proposed fees, indicate the fees that should be consulted upon, and indicate if a reduction in the licence fee in respect of wheelchair-accessible vehicles and or electric vehicles should continue, and if so, what reduction should be applied. Thank you, Chair.
Is there anything that any members would like to raise regarding that report? Councillor O'Connell, would come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just got a question really, and it kind of ties into one of the announcements at the budget yesterday, and that's perhaps a review on the discounts offered for EV charging, given that the tax is going to be applied to EV vehicles in the future at 3p a mile. Do we want to consider removing that discount for this particular time?
That's a decision for you as members. The proposed fees at this stage are for consultation, so what you decide as members will be consulted on with the public and the trade going forward.
Councillor Haynes, you want to come in as well?
Yeah, I do agree with Jason on that one, to be honest with you. I think we should still offer the wheelchair one. There's a massive lack of wheelchair accessible vehicles, and I think that's an encouragement for people to use or buy those as opposed to so they're getting some sort of discount. But I do think there's sort of a bit of an unfairness if somebody can't afford an electric vehicle for general taxiing use. Then they are subsidising that electric vehicle, and they've had massive subsidy up to now already.
Councillor Clarkson, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that could be something that could be consulted on with during the process.
Members need to realise that this is for 26, 27.
26, 27, yeah.
So we've got a chance to look at it further on, but at the moment we need to make a decision now for this particular thing. But it's not to say that we can't come back to it and look at it, in a future part of it. So, do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure. Is it okay if we carry on hearing from members first and then I come in? Is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Horler.
Yeah, thanks. So we're talking about a discount for electric vehicles that are solely used for disabled, but we're not looking for a discount on taxis that are electric. Is that right?
No.
No.
So do we give a discount to taxi drivers that drive electric vehicles, or do we give a discount to those taxi drivers that are electric that help disabled people? Am I reading this wrong?
So at the moment we offer a discount to fully electric vehicles and wheelchair accessible vehicles. So it's two different types of vehicles. So it doesn't mean that a wheelchair accessible vehicle has to be electric. We offer a discount to fully electric vehicles as being one type of vehicle, and then we offer a discount to those vehicles that are wheelchair accessible.
Right, sorry.
Does that answer the question? Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, so shall I take us back to the recommendations? Apologies, Councillor Watkins, do you want to come in?
Yeah, that's okay. Sorry, I think I'm a bit like Councillor Hall. I'm just trying to understand exactly what we're talking about. So I think that clarified it. So Councillor O'Connell, I think, brought up about what was in the budget yesterday for electric vehicles. So when is that coming in? So does that need to be part of this consultation, or is that going to happen outside of this consultation?
So this report today is asking members to consider the proposed fees for 26-27 and if a discount should be applied for fully electric and wheelchair accessible vehicles, and if so, what that discount should be. In terms of the budget announcement yesterday, unfortunately I don't have the details to hand as to when that's coming in, but that could be something that we could look at further on down the line if members wanted us to do so. Okay, so the benefit of members on screen, we believe it's 2028. Is that correct, Councillor O'Connell?
Yeah, that's my interpretation. It's completely separate to this, as I see it. That's it's almost an equalisation in the tax system between a combustible engine and an EV engine, effectively. So they're just trying to as the one combustible type draws down, they're trying to increase tax revenue on the other. But this is a separate issue, obviously focused on taxis primarily.
That's right, yeah. Councillor Clarkson?
Yeah, I'm just still mindful that there's not a huge newer second-hand market for electric vehicles at the moment that taxis can actually tap into, and there's a considerable extra cost to buying a brand new electric vehicle. So I'd be interested myself to hear the opinions of the trade on how they feel this benefits them. It's again something that when 2028 comes along we can look at again, but for 2026-27 I'm wondering whether this is still a valuable incentive for people who are looking to upgrade their fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Councillor Hall, did you want to come in with the same thing?
Yeah, sure.
Perhaps
Just quickly. We're talking about getting our own fleets to electric. Surely we should be embracing that, and if we're trying to get our own fleets electric, then surely we should help those other people around us to make it an advantage of that, to help them go electric as well.
Bring Councillor Parish in, and then perhaps Claire can answer all them in one sort of way. Councillor Parish, did you want to come in with your question, please?
Yes, I think we should continue to says here vehicles should continue with what reduction. Well, I think we should have the same reduction as we've always done it, all wheelchair accessible vehicles.
I tend to agree with you, Councillor Parish, because the recommendations with the budget, we can't infuse in this now because it's just happened, even though this is written up ready. But if you look at the dates between 26 and 27, there's a wide time scale before we can even consult on that, probably. So, but I'll let Claire come back in and explain that in better detail than I can.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, this report is in relation to the proposed fees for 26-27, and we can certainly take anything forward for consultation that members have suggested. So thank you very much for your suggestions and for the discussion around the fees. So if I could bring you back to the recommendations. So it's recommended that the committee approve the proposed taxi licence fees for consultation, or, should members not approve the proposed fees, indicate the fees that should be consulted upon, and indicate if a reduction in the licence fee in respect of wheelchair accessible vehicles and or electric vehicles should continue, and if so, what reduction should be applied. So I don't know, Chair, if you want to take us through each of those recommendations?
Please.
So, Councillor Ings, did you want to come back in before we make the recommendation?
Just a little bit of clarity. If we were to drop the reduction for electric vehicles, what sort of financial impact would that have on the fee payable by the non-electric, for want of a better description? I'm not expecting you to pull a rabbit out of a hat here and give me precise, but, you know, are we talking a couple of pounds per taxi, or are we talking a bit more?
So the proposed fees contained in the report set those proposed fees for vehicles which are not wheelchair accessible or not electric. That's just the standard fee. And then we've all, well, for many years now, and apologies, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how many, we've offered that discount for wheelchair accessible vehicles or electric vehicles to encourage more of that vehicle type onto the fleet. Any reductions are absorbed by the service. So in effect, that, you know, if we offer any reductions, that's just a cost that the service has to bear. So does that answer your question, Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, it does, but should the service be taking that hit, really, is the next one. But okay, just, yeah, okay.
Yeah, going back to it, and unfortunately, we can't sort of tell what, if the taxi vehicles are bought by the applicant or whatever, we can't dictate whether they want electric or what fuel system they want to use, but we're giving them an incentive to support their trade. So, I mean, that's what it is. You know, we can only do our part, you know, to help them, but we can't guarantee what type of vehicle they're going to buy anyway. So, anyway, going back to the recommendations, are we happy to approve this for 26-27? Is everybody in agreement now? John, agree?
So, what are we approving now? Sorry, the statement of approval on this, please. Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, are we approving them one at a time or generally the three together?
Well, do you want me to do you individually to make it easier, or do you want to do it collectively? That's what I'm trying to ask.
So I think what they're saying is, are we approving the whole report?
Yeah.
Or are we going to look at each? So industrial engines, electric engines.
Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Do you want to approve the whole report, or do you want to do it in each individual line? That's what I'm trying to ask.
I think each individual line for me would probably help.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jason, I jumped in front of you then.
Right. Right.
No,
the
no,
first-
fine.
Councillor Evans wants people with their hands up. I don't want to go on to the voting.
All right, Councillor O'Connell, did you want to come in? Yeah, sorry, didn't see that.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point that I'd be happy to review them line by line, but you know, if we're going to get to a point where we can approve them for this year, but perhaps with a caveat that we will review the EV provision over the next 6 months or so and make recommendations for next year, I'd be absolutely fine with it.
That's absolutely fine, Councillor O'Connell, and we can take that on board.
So the recommendation, if I go through it line by line, then, is to approve the proposed taxi licensing fee for consultation, which we're doing now, and the trade will. Or that's the first line. Or the second one is, should members not approve the proposed fees, indicate that the fees that they should be consulted upon. So that's the second bit. The third part of that recommendation is indicate if a reduction in the licence fee in respect of wheelchair accessible vehicles and or electric vehicles should continue, and if so, what reduction should be applied. And then what we're actually doing now at the moment is currently £80 per new vehicle licence application and £70 per renewal application. So that is the recommendation. So we've got to decide, are we going to approve the recommendations for 26-27, or are we going to go through one of the three recommendations? So it's entirely in your hands.
So can I put a motion forward that we approve this, please?
Right.
As it stands.
Right, and that's what I stated at the beginning, so, yeah. Are we happy to approve the recommendations for 26-27 then? Yeah. Are we all in agreement? Anybody not in agreement? Anybody want to abstain? So that...
Chair, can I just seek some clarity, please?
Yeah.
So in terms of the proposed fees for 26-27, this is approval to go out for consultation. In terms of following the discussion on the wheelchair accessible vehicles and electric vehicles, are you approving us to go out and consult on an £80 reduction for new and £70 for renewal? Just to clarify.
Are we happy on with what Claire has stated then? Yeah.
Happy?
Yeah, we're all happy. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. I just needed that clarification.
Okay, thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair.
We'll now move on to item 8, which is the update on licensing and vehicle testing arrangements. And unfortunately, this is Robin's last one, so I'll pass you over to Robin, Senior Licensing.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just bring up the report. So this is an update report. It's one of the reports that's referred to in the Q1 and Q2 workload update reports. Rather than reading through the report, I'll just provide a summary though. So as the committee will be aware, the Council's taxi policy requires that vehicles that are over 1 year old are tested before they're first licensed, and then at 6-monthly intervals until the vehicle reaches 8 years old, when the vehicle must be tested at 4-monthly intervals. And the policy says those tests should be carried out by a council-approved garage. The garage then issues the vehicle with a certificate of compliance, and that means that an MOT certificate is not required for as long as the certificate of compliance and also the vehicle licence remain current. This whole testing regime is based on the premise that the Council has approved garages, but in February 2024, as the committee may recall, the contract with the Council's only approved garage ended, so there was then no approved garage to test vehicles and no garage to issue certificates of compliance in accordance with the policy. An interim measure had to be put in place that gave a temporary deviation from the policy by allowing the submission of an annual MOT certificate in place of the 6th or 4-monthly certificates of compliance. That was extended by the committee last year whilst the procurement process was carried out, but at the end of that process, unfortunately, no garages were approved. The temporary deviation was last extended by the committee in November 2024, and that was for 12 months or until a long-term solution was in place, whichever was sooner. The committee also agreed for a second procurement process to be undertaken, and then if no garages were approved, for alternative measures to be explored, which could be put in place instead of having an approved garage. However, those approved measures aren't now needed, as we have 4 garages that have been approved by the Council to test licensed vehicles. Those garages are French Auto Solutions based in Mamhired Park Estate, Park Limited in Pont-Newydd, the Council's own garage based in the New Inn Depot, and Ascafel Auto Services Limited, which is in Pontymoyle. The garages started testing on the 3rd of November this year, so the temporary deviation from the policy is therefore ended. I'll just move to section 8 of the report just to read through the recommendation, and that is, the General Licensing Committee notes that 4 garages based in Torvine have been approved to test licensed vehicles on behalf of the Council, and that the temporary deviation from the Council's policy that allowed the submission of an MOT certificate in place of a certificate of compliance has now ended. That's the report, Chair.
Thank you for your last one. Don't think you've got away yet. Councillor Hawler, you'd like a question?
Yeah, thanks. So what you're saying is that we've now got a methodology of being able to MOT these vehicles more regularly within the requirements of what we have. So when we approved this last year, we didn't have the said garages in the area, and it was really inconvenient for those people to go outside the borough to get that. And now we've got them, so is not the recommendation is to move it back to where we were originally, because we don't have the concern about not having those garages in the borough to be able for those companies to use. Is that correct?
So the recommendation was approved in November 2024, said that the deviation would end if garages were approved, and the garages were approved and began testing on the 3rd of November, so that's when the deviation ended. So the committee have kind of already gave approval for the deviation to end in the situation we're in at the moment. So, but yes, that's correct. In last year, there were no garages. We wrote to all the garages, DVSA approved garages in Torvine to invite them to apply for the contract, to bid for the contract, but unfortunately they weren't approved. We went through the same process again this year, wrote to all the garages based in Torvine that DVSA approved, and we had a better response this year. Unfortunately, we've now got the 4 garages, so the testing is carried out as per the requirements of the policy.
You all right with that, Councillor Hawler?
Yeah, that really clarifies that that does clarify that there isn't a situation right now. We need to go back to where we were originally before we had the garages. That's got to be the case on this matter.
Okay, thank you for that. Mike. Councillor Haynes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, great news. We've got 4 garages, one of which is our own on board. That's brilliant news. And I will just formalise it and move the recommendation.
The only question I'd ask is, any taxi can go to any garage? There's no set garage they got to go to?
No, that's right. So there's 4 garages they can choose from. The garages have set their own prices. They've got their own availability, so it's down to the individual vehicle licence holder to decide where they take their business. We went with the 4 garages to provide resilience, so if one of them decides not to continue with the contract, then we're not in the same situation we were in last year. And it is also to give local businesses the opportunity to generate more income and have our business, so to speak.
Thank you for that. Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. So obviously previously when we had no garages and now we've got the 4 garages, how do we filter that information out to the licence holders?
So they were all written to tell them the location of the 4 garages, giving contact numbers, and it's due to be updated on our website shortly. So and if anybody contacts us for advice, we let them know that there are 4 garages. We don't recommend any particular one. It's literally these are the 4 garages, and you contact them to find out which one you want to go to based on availability, cost, and whatever other considerations they may have.
Thank you.
Claire, do you want to come back?
And just to add as well, we also send out as a courtesy service reminders to our licensed drivers to let them know when their MOT or certificate of compliance is due. So all that information is sent out to them in advance of needing any test as well.
Any other questions before we go on to the recommendations from anyone? No. The recommendations are on page 48 of your agenda. The General Licensing Committee notes that the 4 garages based in Torvine have been approved to test licensed vehicles on behalf of the Council, and that temporary deviation from the Council's policy that allows the submission of an MOT certificate in place of a certificate of compliance has ended. Are we all in agreement with that?
Yep.
Anybody not? Okay, that's passed. Thank you. Thank you for that. We then move on to item 9, which is a review of the Hackney carriage and private hire vehicle limits and signage requirements. Robin, that's your one. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So this report follows on from matters that were considered at the committee's meetings in July and October this year. So it relates, as has been said, to the the age restrictions that are set out in the Council's policy on the administration and regulation of Hackney carriage and private hire licences, the taxi policy, and also relates to the signage that must be displayed on private hire vehicles. So I'll go through those two things separately, beginning with the age restrictions. So the current age restrictions are set out in the policy, detailed in paragraph 3.4 of the report. So they say that a vehicle must be under 5 years old when first licensed. A vehicle must be under 8 years old if a vehicle licence is to be transferred. The vehicles may be replaced with another vehicle that's under 5 years old, or with another licensed vehicle that is under 8 years of age, or otherwise with a temporary insurance vehicle. The policy also says that a vehicle may be relicensed if the vehicle is under 8 years old, and after that, if it's under 10 years old, but only if it's in very good condition. So that's kind of a summary of the information in paragraph 3.4 of the report. Several requests were received from the taxi trade asking for the age restrictions to be relaxed. And on the 2nd of October this year, the committee agreed for consultation to be undertaken on a revised set of restrictions. Appendix 1 of the report kind of sets out how those the current restrictions will be amended with the proposals. So I'll just refer to Appendix 1. So this says that new and replacement vehicles under the proposals could be under 8 years old instead of under 5 years old. A vehicle licence could be transferred regardless of the age of the vehicle, assuming that it's suitable to be licensed and the new proprietor is also a suitable person. And the proposals also would allow a vehicle to be relicensed regardless of the age, so removing the 10-year age restriction and having no upper age limit. However, any vehicle that's over 8 would have to be inspected by an officer and considered to be in a good condition before the vehicle licence would be granted. Public consultation took place on the proposed age limits between the 3rd of October and the 9th of November. Licence holders were written to and advised of the proposals and asked for their views, and then public consultation was carried out via the Get Involved Torvine consultation platform, and that was publicised via our social media channels and also via the Council's weekly e-newsletter. We received 28 responses from licence holders, and of those, one was signed by 4 individual licence holders, and that covered a variety of drivers, vehicle proprietors and operators. The responses are set in Appendix 2 of the report, and then in addition to the trades responses, we also received 70 responses via the Get Involved Torvine platform, and those are set out in Appendix 3 of the report. The taxi trade were mostly in support of the proposals, as were the public, although some alternatives were suggested, and those have been discussed in paragraphs 4.1, 4.2 and 4.3 of the report. An analysis of the responses has also been carried out, looking at those who were for and those who were against the proposed age restrictions. And Appendix 6, which I'll just bring up, is a bar chart showing the responses with those who were for the proposals and those who were against, with the proposal sort of explained just below that. So the first proposal was to increase the age of new vehicles from below 5 years to below 8 years. The second one was a proposal to allow a vehicle of any age to be with a vehicle of any age to be transferred, and so on. So those were the 6 proposals, and as can be seen here, from the responses we received, everybody was for the proposals. So that's the age restrictions, and the kind of overwhelming sort of response was that the trade and the public support the proposals. As I said, though, any vehicle that's over 8 years old would have to be inspected by an officer before a vehicle licence is renewed. And any vehicle that's over 8 would also be subject to 4 monthly tests in accordance with the policy. The second part of the report refers to the signage requirements for private hire vehicles, and an extract of the policy is provided in paragraph 3.5 of the report. So this says that private hire vehicles must display the name of the operator on both sides of the vehicle in letters not less than 15 centimetres tall. The registered telephone number of the operator must also be displayed clearly on the vehicle. The signs must be fixed to the vehicle using a permanent fixing, e.g. adhesive, with removable signs such as magnetic not being permitted, and window signs alone not being acceptable. A request was received from one driver, who is also a vehicle proprietor, for that requirement to be removed from the policy. And on the 2nd of October, so at the last committee meeting, the committee agreed for the views of the whole trade to be sought before any decision was made to remove that requirement. That's been done. We wrote to all licence holders. 18 responses were received, and again, one of those was signed by 4 licence holders. The responses are shown in Appendix 4 of the report. 8 licence holders, sorry, just moved down in the report. 8 licence holders considered the requirement should remain, as it helped to protect the public by allowing them to clearly identify vehicles that they had hired. 1 licence holder thought the requirement should be relaxed by allowing magnetic signage, and 12 licence holders considered that it should be removed, as they considered there were other ways to identify vehicles. It is costly, it can damage vehicles, and it can make vehicles a target for crime, vandalism and abuse, as well as it not being a requirement of other local authorities. So 18 responses were received to our request for views from the trades, and that was out of 177 individuals who hold driver, vehicle and or operator licences. The signage isn't a statutory requirement, but it has been in place in Torvine since at least 2013, so it's a long-standing way of recognising vehicles in Torvine. We understand the Welsh Government is planning to introduce standards across Wales for vehicles, although we don't know exactly when that's going to come into place, what it will be, and what the implications will be for individual local authority policies. So in the absence of a clear position from the taxi trade, now may not be the time to change the signage requirement, but obviously it's something for the committee to consider. As the report sets out, other matters were raised in the consultation responses, and those are discussed in the report and from section 4.10 onwards. It's not proposed at this stage, as explained in the report, for any of those suggestions to be taken forward at this time, other than replacing one term in the taxi policy with wheelchair accessible vehicles. So I'll now just move to the recommendations, and those are in section 8 of the report. So the first recommendation is that the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Vehicle age restrictions detailed in the Council's policy and administration and regulation of Hackney Carriage and Private Hire licences are replaced on the 8th of December 2025, so that's a week Monday, with those set out in Appendix 1, but with all the track changes accepted. The second one is that there are no changes to the current requirements for private hire operator signage to be displayed on private hire vehicles. And the third recommendation is that the term wheelchair-bound passengers in paragraph 3 of section 1 of the policy is replaced with wheelchair users. That's the report, Chair.
Thank you, Robin. Is any questions at all for Robin in regard to the report? Councillor Watkins.
Thank you. Yeah, just a question about, I noted that one of the taxi drivers against leaving the signage on, they want the signage removed, questioned the safety, and the damage that might be done to the taxis. Is that sort of issue going to be looked into then if it goes forward in the future?
Yeah, so in terms of any vandalism, abuse, that sort of thing, then we encourage people to report to the police because it's obviously a police matter. In terms of damage to vehicles, it's not something that's been raised previously, so it's not something that we're really aware of, but I mean, it's something that we could consider. We are waiting on, as I said, the direction from Welsh Government on what we can and can't do in terms of vehicle conditions, but if the committee think that might be a reason for removing the signage, then obviously we could remove that from the policy.
Yeah. I think it's something worth bearing in mind, because obviously it's quite a serious thing to say. So I think, yeah, if we look at it again in the future, probably following the Welsh Government guidance, that's definitely something, because I guess whoever reported that is going to flag that up again, especially if it happens to them. So I think that's just something to bear in mind that we'll need to look at in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Clarkson, you've got a question for Robin?
But it's more of a sort of comment, really, in light of the fact that there wasn't a huge response from the trade regarding this, and it has been ongoing for some time, that we expect this signage to be displayed in the way that it is, in a more permanent way than a magnetic signage. It would seem wise to me to wait for Welsh Government to come forward with their deliberations and what they expect from the trade, rather than to introduce changes at this point, which may incur some sort of cost and possibly inconvenience to the trade, and then may have to change shortly after. So I would put forward that I'm minded to just leave things as they are and accept the recommendations as they stand at this time.
Want to come back and with anything on that, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, from an officer point of view, as I say, there's been no clear direction from the trade. The request originally came from one individual. It's not something that's been brought to us time and time again, that the trade are unhappy with it. I mean, obviously, operators appreciate it because it advertises their businesses, but it makes it clear when a vehicle turns up, clear to a passenger that it's from the company that they hired the vehicle from. So it's, in that regard, it's a very good public safety sort of measure. So officers would recommend it, as per the report, that it remains, but it's open to members to give us direction.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Thank you, Robin.
Yeah, just to see you up with that. Councillor Hall, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just going to go back on. Linda's got it, Councillor Clark's got it bang on. I reckon there's no need to change until we need that change, and that's the change from the Welsh Government that's going to give us the new change, isn't it? So please can we keep it as it is? Thank you.
Before we move on to the recommendation, does anybody else want to ask a question? Councillor Hall, your hand is still up. Must be legacy. If not, Robin's read out the recommendations, save me reading them again. Are we happy to agree them recommendations? Yeah. Anybody not happy with them? Anybody want to abstain? No. That's been approved. Thank you for that. We move on to item 10. Is the date of the next meeting is the 26th of February 2026, by look at that, not 25. Yeah. So 26. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
That's the end of the meeting for that one. Thank you.
We need to go into an exclusion. There should be an exclusion part on the end of the script.
We go on to the interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. So item 12 is exempt minutes of the previous license.